Hey friends, welcome back to the Hot News channel, the place where you get timed exclusives on content like this, which in today's video, we're gonna be talking about the GTX 1650 and the nonsense that Nvidia has pulled with this. Because yes, it is news that Nvidia released yet another weirdly named 16 series card. It came out, I believe 9 a.m. Eastern yesterday in the United States. We've actually had our GTX 1650 for over a week now. Palette sent it to us directly from the factory, but we didn't have any drivers, so we couldn't actually review the card. And if you look out on the internet, that appears to be what Nvidia did for everybody. Not a single reviewer that I can find actually got their hands on a driver for the GTX 1650. Apparently, at least according to what Nvidia told Gamers Nexus and what they stated in their video, was for unification reasons, so that it wouldn't be that the review results were different than the public driver results, which is a really strange way of putting things because that shouldn't have an impact on things at all. And why wasn't an issue with cards like the RTX 2080 Ti? And then in places like Tom's Hardware, where they reported on this, they just said that Nvidia didn't give them a reason. They just didn't get drivers for whatever reason. And obviously I can go into a ton of speculation, which I definitely will in just a bit, but it definitely seems like Nvidia has taken an anti-media stance when it comes to the launch of the GTX 1650, something that they haven't done for a card, at least in any time that I can recall in the latest launches of cards. They didn't do this for any of the 10 series cards. They didn't do this for any of the 20 series, and up until this point, all of the 16 series cards always went out to reviewers at least slightly ahead of time. There have been some reviews where some reviewers got the card the day before the announcement was supposed to take place, but even when that happened, drivers were provided. There was the ability for reviews to come out ahead of time so that the public could be informed about the product. And now it's not necessarily guaranteed that every product has to be reviewed before it comes out. It's okay to launch your product without reviews, but it isn't in this case because Nvidia has set a precedent of actually wanting reviewers to give their opinion on the products they're releasing so that the public can make an informed purchasing decision. The fact that that wasn't there kind of indicates that Nvidia is trying to alleviate that pressure, because as was demonstrated, the fact that I had the card here in South Africa over a week and a half before the launch shows that Nvidia had these things ready to go quite ahead of time, and there's no real reason that the driver couldn't have been rolled out to reviewers. And I'm used to this because I have no direct representation with Nvidia. I'm not in contact with anybody there. The last two Nvidia card launches that I've been on time for have been because of Wootware, a local retailer, and then Palette, a third-party manufacturer of Nvidia's cards. Never Nvidia themselves. They don't talk to me. In fact, we got a video out for the 1660 Ti launch only because I modified the drivers that were actually already out to support the 1660 Ti, not because I had press drivers. So whatever way this was going, I just had a 1650 with nothing to do with it, and I knew that was the case. I couldn't contact anybody at Nvidia because they don't reply to my emails. So I had to sit with the card with no ability to review it, but little did I know that everybody else in the tech industry was also dealing with the exact same thing. Nvidia is pulling some shady crap, and it does appear because that this is the weakest offering of the bunch. The GTX 1650 holds none of the things that define the rest of the Turing generation. At least with the 1660 and up, you get support for ray tracing, and you also get support for Nvidia's new NVENC encoder, which gives you some hardware acceleration boost up to 15% just by virtue of the fact that the architecture is there and it supports it. But apparently they decided to do away with that. Not only does the 1650 only have GDDR5 and not GDDR6, likely due to a cost constraint, but then also it doesn't have any of the defining performance of ray tracing that the rest of the Turing cards have. Obviously it would suck even if it did, but that's not really the point. This is a weird cut down setup that they're doing, but then also it doesn't have the NVENC accelerated streaming bonus that the rest of the Turing cards come with, and there's no real reason why Nvidia says that they just changed how it works, because it appears that the NVENC encoder that's happening with the 1650 is more akin to the one that's based on Volta/Pascal and not the one that's based on Turing. So they already went back a generation to release the 1650. And then that not only including all of that stuff about how it just doesn't look like a Turing card, but the performance is pretty garbage. It's a $150 card. It doesn't beat an RX 570, at least from the things that I've seen. And then considering the fact that, you know, you can get an RX 580 on sale for $150 sometimes, and then you get a pretty decent game bonus on top of that, it just kind of shows that Nvidia actually shouldn't have released this card at all. So the fact that they shouldn't have released it, they somehow need to turn that into a way of silencing the press and the reviewers to not say, hey, don't buy this card, because then that would have stifled their initial sales on the card and made it so that people wouldn't want to pick one of these up. But from what I can gather, just based on the public perception that I've seen in our videos and whenever we've talked about the leaks of the 1650, based on consumer and viewer interest, nobody really wanted these cards anyways, because as soon as you go below $200, there's tons of options for you to buy already. I mean, a 580's under $200, 570, 560, and then you have the 1050 Ti and the 1050, and sometimes even a 1063 gig can go on sale for below $200. And then not to mention picking up any sort of used card from the GTX 1060, or on the best sale that you could possibly find, a GTX 1070. You can get a lot of good things for around the $150 to $200 region already. It seems like it's oversaturated, which it wouldn't necessarily have to be if Nvidia could bring something that actually beat out the competition and had some of the new architectural improvements that Turing seems to boast, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like they are just releasing a piece of crap. They knew it, and so they didn't give reviewers press drivers because they didn't want anybody talking bad about it before the launch so that it wouldn't harm pre-sales on the thing. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe Nvidia will come out with a legitimate clarification in the next few days, but I don't see one happening. It just really feels like Nvidia is trying to cover up just how useless of a launch this 1650 actually is. Even then, we could say, like, people could compare it to the RTX series of cards, saying those should have never launched, but at least with them, there is the Turing overhaul from Pascal, and then there are ray tracing and tensor cores. There is something different about them. Whether or not they're overpriced and whether or not you should buy them, two different questions, but there is something different. The 1650 seems to be something old when they're already releasing new stuff, and it just kind of sucks. And they probably should have just kept the 1050 and 1050 Ti on sale, if I'm being honest. Anyways, let me know what you think of the GTX 1650. Let me know what you think of Nvidia not really giving drivers to press media. Is this something that you're okay with? Like, if this is just Nvidia's policy moving forward, is this something that you would be fine with? I'm keen to hear your comments and thoughts down below in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this little hot news snippet. Get subscribed to stay up to date on all of our hot news related content. I'm Brett with the Hot News channel. I'll see your smiling faces again in the next video. Love you too.